For many people, La Bohème is the great opera, the most popular opera. It has a magic, it has an aura about it that is unique. Why, Renée? What is it about Bohème that makes it so important to people?
Do you know, the most popular operas have a plethora of material, first of all, of just musical duets, arias, ensembles that each one is distinctive and each one breaks your heart. And this story is one of the most romantic in all of opera. And it's not without its complexities. It's not a sort of black and white, cheerful relationship with the tragedy strikes them. They're not perfect people, which gives it a depth that I find very interesting. But this piece, it's the all-time best date opera. Hint, hint.
And one extraordinary melody after another.
Yes.
An outpouring of melodic invention that is
And the way they
unique.
meet, the seeming coincidence that we sort of now have come to believe that is not a coincidence, that she's planned this, and the romance of joining these bohemians, of course, in Montmartre in Paris, the part of Paris that we all romanticize, who have no money, but they have art, and they have each other. And it's a piece that people will go to again and again and again, which I find interesting.
And Andrew, it's one of the most perfectly constructed scores, isn't it?
I always feel that, well, with Puccini, some of the other operas, which are fantastic, but I mean, even something like Butterfly, for instance, I sometimes feel he's saying, oh, I know how to get the audience, how to bring the tears, and you know, he's sort of pressing a button in a way, brilliantly.
Yeah.
It's manipulative.
But with Bohème, I don't think there's anything like that. There's not a spare note in it. Everything is there for a reason. It's all very spontaneous and felt in the most, in that sort of very direct way that only an Italian can do, you know, and yet it's very deep. So and the progression through the opera from this sort of carefree beginning to the tragedy of Mimi's death at the end is supremely touching and not remotely contrived. I think it's and one thing I always say, and I'm going to say it again about Puccini, is we're all so seduced by the vocal writing and the great tunes that he was a great orchestrator. The color in the orchestra is phenomenal.
Yes. And there are many examples of that within Bohème. One thinks of the opening of Act 3, the custom barrier at dawn on a freezing morning.
Yeah, and it evokes that so brilliantly and so simply, you know.
And he is a manipulator in some ways, an emotional manipulator. He has an absolute fine control over what he is communicating to an audience. But much great art is manipulative, and perhaps manipulation is the wrong word to use. Perhaps it's just communication, emotional communication, and that's what all art is about.
Well, I heard this, an aria from Edgar, a baritone aria that I wasn't familiar with yesterday, and I could not get it out of my head for the rest of the day. So there's something to be said for great melody. Because we've come to know this opera so well, the distinguishing factor for many of us now is who is singing the opera. And we have, of course, a debut by one of the most important artists in the world today, Anna Netrebko, who has it all. She's beautiful. She has an extraordinary instrument, and I've heard her since she first came on the scene with a much more lyrical style of singing, and now she's gained in sort of warmth and depth, and you can't match her voice for sheer beauty and sumptuousness. It's rich. So she'll bring her star power, her glamour, and her stage presence to this. And you're more familiar, I think, with Ana Maria Martinez, who I've heard her gorgeous recordings because she's become a great Rusalka, which is one of my favorite roles.
A wonderful soprano. I've worked with her many times. She has a really moving, expressive, sensitive stage presence and a gorgeous lyric voice that is so beautifully projected. She's a unique artist, I think.
Yes, she's marvelous. Her Rusalka is beautiful. And she did a marvelous Marguerite in Faust with me the last time we did it. Which it's wonderful that, you know, if you're going to double cast to have these two
Yes,
singers,
yes.
it's luxury.
And the same applies to our two tenors, Dimitri Pitas, a really exciting young Greek-American tenor, making his lyric debut, and Joseph Kalea, who you know very well,
Yes,
Renée,
yes.
a wonderful Maltese
Maltese, exactly, with a very unusual sound and a fluttering vibrato that I absolutely love. It's a shimmer. There's a big shimmer in his voice, and yet at the same time, it's a quite round, big sound. And he's a big guy, so he's a strong presence. Especially in this hall, it'll be perfect. And Anna also brings an extraordinary stage presence. She's fearless. So I think we'll find that the final scene and also the confrontation, the fight scene, is going to have particular fireworks this time.
And that also applies to Anna Maria. She's also fearless on stage and a really physical performer.
Oh, and Musetta and Marcello are also such interesting characters. Their relationship is so fascinating.
We have Elizabeth Futrell and Lucas Meacham.
Well, one of the things that I think even musicologists are beginning to say is that Puccini has been underrated. As you said, not a spare note and everything in its place and where it should be. But overall, let's not forget, I think that Puccini is at the heart of the most popular opera, and nobody has unseated him in more than 100 years.
I know, Tosca, Bohème, Butterfly, Turandot.
These are the most mainstream, most beloved pieces.